Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's just going to be an easy breezy day. I'm just going to chat about copywriting, contract work versus working with a full-time employer, and pretty much about my journey and how I've traveled between both worlds. I always get a lot of questions about what it's like to work full-time with an employer or work for contract, and I'm about to let you know a few of the differences and like what I noticed, what I liked and what I didn't like. So for me, I've always worked from home. I've always worked in copywriting or marketing. So that transition from working full-time under an employer and then working in contract work, it just really didn't feel like a difference. The only difference I noticed specifically is the amount of money that I was receiving. So when you work with an employer, they take your taxes out, your social security and all of that good stuff. But when you work with contract work, it depends on what type of contract you sign, whether it's 6 months or a year. A lot of the contract work do not take out taxes, so that's something that you always have to be weary about, and you gotta like set up your stuff through the government and like make sure that you pay your taxes either quarterly as like a small business owner, because you don't want to fumble that bag, because it's so easy to get big checks at one time. Then if you're not paying it back, you're definitely gonna be paying it back at the end of the year. And so something else that I noticed working in full-time versus contract work is when my first contract role that I signed, it started off really well. It was going really good and I really liked it. But something that I noticed that I didn't like about this specific contract that I had signed is, first I signed on and it was just, I'm supposed to write a certain amount of blog posts and a certain amount of copy just for the month. And once you turn in a deliverable for the month, then that's it. You good to go and you going about your business, right? So as a contractor, you're not obligated to be on as many meetings as if you were a full-time employer, because at the end of the day, I'm contracted out to just deliver something to the person that I'm contracted out to. So I don't have the same stipulations as if I was employed full-time with someone. And I noticed that in a lot of the contracts that I was looking at and looking over, and then the one that I used to be in, they signed me on as a contractor, but I still had the restraints of working with an employer full-time. So that means I was attending meetings 4 to 5 times a week. They had a strenuous editing team, which means they went over the work over and over and over, which I'm used to that. I'm totally used to that in copywriting. But it would be really hard for me to balance other projects because this one was taking on a big bulk of my time, and I personally did not like that. So you always have to be sure and get clarity. Even if it doesn't say in the contract, you always want to be clear and sure. How many meetings am I going to be attending? Are they monthly? Are they weekly? Are they daily? Do I really need to be in daily huddle meetings, which I know like a lot of marketing teams have? So you really have to think about that in that regard. It was just the first lesson I learned. But thankfully, with my first contract that I signed on to, about 6 weeks in, we both came to the mutual decision that this was not just a good partnership, and we just equally parted ways. And like I was so relieved because I had already been doing copywriting work full-time, like employed with somebody, and it was never even that strenuous. But I've noticed even on LinkedIn hubs and stuff like that, I see a lot of contractors say, I feel like when they contract me out, they're still trying to use me as an employer without employer benefits, and that just doesn't make sense. So when you're looking at contract work, you really need to make sure that it's benefiting your lifestyle and giving you the flexibility that you need. When I pivoted out of my first full-time contract, I was already still submitting applications, because one thing about it, when you're doing contract work, you're never idle. You should really be balancing at least maybe 1 to 2 projects, maybe 3 projects at a time, depending on how much you signed on for, and you should always be submitting your resume. So thankfully, during that 6 weeks, I was still interviewing because I still wanted to pick up one more project for the end of the year. However, when I came across this senior marketing coordinator role, because I also have experience with being a marketing coordinator, they were also very copywriting heavy. So every time you see a marketing coordinator role, it's very different. Like they might want you to coordinate whatever projects they're having, but this one specifically wanted to really launch newsletters and blog posts and things like that. So I wasn't really 100% sure on coming back off the contract track, but it just seemed like such a great opportunity, and it just really aligned with the goals that I have now. So I just thought it was a good way to pivot. Now, this isn't to say that I haven't given up on contract work, because I love contract work. But I do feel like for me and my personal lifestyle, that in order to balance contract work, I still would like to have a remote work from home, very light schedule, full-time job, and balance one project on the side so that I can build my savings up off of the side contract work, which I feel like just makes more sense for me personally. Lots of friends who do a lot of contract work, and they did contract maybe 1 to 2 years, then they got an employer for a year, then they got back into contract work. So it really just depends on the person, the goal, and what you're looking to get out of working contract or working full-time. Also too, want to point out that I have had so many different roles, even though I worked in copywriting. So on my resume, I normally present myself as a copywriter. Like, that's what I sell myself as. You know how you have a resume and like you might have 5 different variations? I meet myself as a copywriter, a social media manager, or a marketing coordinator. So those are typically the 3 roles that I kind of roll around in. And I also say that my other skills, or like my secondary skills, is graphics and videography. So that's pretty much also the reason why I keep my social media presence up and I keep my YouTube videos up, because it just looks like it's a part of the resume. When I worked for the company, the first company that I worked with, I normally did a lot of graphics and a lot of video, but since then I pretty much honed my skills down to just copywriting. I don't really want to be making graphics and coming up with the copy unless it's like something small. Like, yes, I keep up my skills, I can still make a newsletter, I can still make a email template or something like that, but for the most part, Carrie Martin is a copywriter, and that's really what gets the skill set, that's really what gets the job done, that's really what gets resume pulled. But that isn't to say that I don't enjoy doing social media management. It's just that social media management requires you to be on social media a lot and like talk to people a lot, answer a lot of comments, answer a lot of DMs. And I would much rather be on the section where I just do the copy or I do the analysis of it all. So you kind of want to think about, when you working in marketing, like, how are you, what is your main goal, what is the one thing that you're really good at, and how can all of these other skill sets surround you? Because I have been seeing a lot of copywriters in the business say, they hire me and then they want me to do this, they want me to do that. Well, I think the lines are kind of getting blurred, and like I personally don't like that, but just because I don't like it don't mean I shouldn't build other skill sets. That's just, it's just the name of the game. It's just what it's like when it comes to looking for jobs. They typically want to know if you can do at least 1 or 2 other things. I want to say too, I never had a problem with working with an employer full time. I only have a problem with working in office. That is a non-negotiable for me. I will not work in an office because it's marketing. I write blog posts. There's not really a reason for me to sit in an office and do that. It makes no sense. You can see me a company laptop, you can see me company products, but like going in office, it's just a deal breaker. I don't care how many pizza parties, I don't care how many company trips. It doesn't fit with my personal lifestyle. Like, I'm 32 years old. I like being able to work at my own pace and my own schedule, but I can definitely work for an employer full-time copywriting. It builds your repertoire, except the only thing I like about having contract work is it does bring in extra income, and also it gives you a chance to work with other companies in other fields and other niches. So even though I branded as a copywriter, I don't have a specific niche. So I've written in health and wellness, education, finance. I've written in all those fields. So it's not really hard for me because I know how to do the research and like join the company quickly and go through their research and kind of look at their social media presence, and I can kind of gauge what they're looking for and what else they may want to bring to the table. So that's typically how about building my resume and making sure that I have something that's wide variety, because I have seen people say, oh, I just like the way you've worked in different fields and you've worked with different niches. That way they want to know that you can jump on and learn their brand quickly. So that like there's a lot of hearsay about just working in one field. So if you do health and wellness, then you just bring yourself as a health and wellness copywriter, and that is good. This is especially good for contract work. But like if you're doing like employee work, like it's what I'm doing currently now, then I say do lots of side contract work and build up your resume in other niches, and then also find a niche that you like. Honestly, to me, there's not a niche that I feel like I didn't like. Like, I could do education, health, wellness, finance. Like, those niches were totally Googleable. Like, it wasn't difficult to do. I just personally like writing. Some people kind of got a finicky thing about what they writing about, but not me. I'm good to go. In my new role, even though it is copywriting heavy, I still have to learn a lot of things like Google Analytics, Google AdSense, managing campaigns. There's a lot of data, which this is new for me because I'm typically on the content creation side fully 100%. So normally there would be someone, I would be on a marketing team, and it would be a pyramid, and it would be the people that do the data, the analytics, the AdSense, and they would tell us what the customers are doing or searching for and looking for, and then it would trickle down to the middle part of marketing, which is the content creation. And I would take those numbers and take that data and cultivate content, subjects, taglines off that content, and then create. So for the most part, somebody's always been doing the top of funnel for me. So now I am learning extreme new skills about Google Analytics and about AdSense, and that way I can cultivate this idea and this information just for me when it comes to creating content. And I really loved it because it's kind of a challenge. I always thought that I would be the type of person that I would always be only content creation, but the more I learn about marketing and the more times I join different marketing teams, you really start to think about where you are as a content creator on the scheme of importance to a business. So hypothetically, another pandemic happens, or hypothetically something global happens. The first thing they cut is influencers, then content creation, then it kind of goes up, right? You know, they'll try to cut costs where they can. So this way, I feel like I'm learning more skills, learning deeper skills that's more transferable and look good when I go on to the next phase of my career. Because there's gonna come a time where knowing just how to write or knowing just how to make a graphic in Adobe is just not gonna be enough to hold your position in your role. And I've noticed in like a lot of job hunts, they are asking, do you know how to manage campaigns? Do you know how to do Google Analytics? Do you know these things? So it's just very, very, very important. That's just my experience with working with contractors and just what I think about what it's like working with contractors versus employers. To me, it's just to each his own. Some people really like having the stability of working with an employer full time, and some people just like maybe taking a lump sum of money and working with somebody 3 months and then working with somebody 6 months. And I will say working with contract work is a great way to build your resume, especially if you're trying to break into another industry. And contract work is also a great way to bring on some extra income. So that's whether you have a full-time employer and you also might want to work with a contractor on the side. But that's just a little bit about my journey of navigating contract work to employer to contract work to employer. I mean, I work in marketing, so who knows? It's all up in the air. So maybe I could stay with an employer for 5 years and then do contract work on the side, or I might just do full contract work or start my own thing. You just never know. In marketing and copywriting and social media, it's just the playground is yours. You can really, really, really do whatever you want. So yes, that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next one.